Trump just announced he's bringing foreign workers into the United States. And the moment I saw it, I thought, this one's going to hit differently. For years, we've heard America first. We've heard bring the jobs home. And now suddenly, the same man who built his platform on protecting American workers is opening the gates to foreign labor. They're calling it a temporary skills program, mentors from overseas to teach Americans how to build ships, semiconductors, and defense systems. But I've been around long enough to know that in Washington, the word temporary usually means permanent. Some say it's strategy, a short-term fix to rebuild American industry. Others call it a betrayal, a slow bleed of opportunity for our own people. But just as the debate started boiling, Democrats lit another fire. They dropped a fresh batch of Jeffrey Epstein emails, and of course, Trump's name shows up. Not in hundreds, not in dozens, in three. 3 emails out of hundreds of thousands. And still, the media pounced like it was the story of the century. So I spent the morning going through it, every line, every redaction, every thread they thought would sting. And what I found says more about the people leaking it than the man they're trying to destroy. Because here's the pattern I keep seeing. Whenever Washington's nervous, they reach for a distraction. And this week, they needed a big one. So today, I want to take you through both stories, the foreign worker plan that's testing Trump's loyalty to his own base, and the Epstein email leak that's unraveling faster than the Democrats ever expected. Different stories? Sure. But both tell us something about the moment we're living in, a time when every move, every leak, every deal feels like part of a much bigger fight for control. The announcement came quietly, at first, buried under other headlines. Trump's administration confirmed plans to expand something called H-1B visas, a program that allows companies to bring in workers from overseas for specialized jobs. The number they're talking about? We're not entirely sure yet, but an estimate we can make is probably somewhere between tens and hundreds of thousands over the next few years. Now, if you're not familiar with H-1B, think of it this way. It's like hiring a contractor from another country to do work that used to be done by your neighbor. The government says it's because we don't have enough people trained for these roles. Industries like semiconductor manufacturing, shipbuilding, advanced tech, even weapons design. The administration's reasoning sounds straightforward enough on the surface. They say America offshored so many of these industries over the past few decades that we simply don't have the workforce ready to jump back in. So the idea is to bring in experienced workers from places like Taiwan, South Korea, India, people who've been building chips and batteries and ships their whole lives, and have them teach Americans how to do it again. It's framed as a mentorship program, a bridge to get us back on our feet. Temporary, they say, just until we can train our own people. But here's where it gets complicated. A lot of folks who voted for Trump did so because he promised to put American workers first. His whole pitch was about bringing jobs back home, protecting wages, rebuilding the middle class. So when people hear that there are going to be hundreds of thousands of foreign workers who are about to fill these brand new manufacturing jobs, the ones we were told would go to Americans, it feels like something doesn't add up. And honestly, they're not wrong to be confused. This is a sharp turn from the message that won him the election. Now, I'm not saying there isn't some logic to what they're proposing. If you want to build a semiconductor plant in Arizona and nobody in Arizona knows how to operate the equipment, you've got a problem. You can't just pull someone off an unemployment line and hand them a blueprint for a microchip. These are specialized, technical, often dangerous jobs. Battery manufacturing, for example, involves volatile materials. One mistake and you've got explosions, contamination, serious safety risks. So the argument is, we need people who already know what they're doing to get these facilities up and running and to pass that knowledge on. But, and this is a big but, the skepticism comes from experience. We've seen this movie before. Temporary programs have a funny way of becoming permanent. Guest worker arrangements that were supposed to last a few years end up lasting decades. And when companies realize they can hire skilled workers from other countries for less money than it costs to hire and train Americans, the economic incentive to keep those workers around becomes pretty strong. That's where the real friction is. It's not just about whether Americans can do the job. It's about whether they'll ever get the chance. So what exactly pushed Trump to make this move? Let's look under the hood. On one level, there's the practical side. Trump has been making deals all over the world, bringing in massive investments from foreign companies. Think about it, he's convinced chip manufacturers, battery producers, even shipbuilders to set up operations here in the US. That's a win, no question. But those companies didn't agree to come here just out of goodwill. They wanted assurances. They wanted to know they could bring their own teams, their own experts, to make sure things got done right. And that's where the H-1B program comes in. It's part of the deal. Now, here's what the administration isn't saying as loudly. This isn't just about filling a skills gap. It's about economics. Workers from countries like India or South Korea, even highly skilled engineers and technicians, are often willing to work for significantly less than their American counterparts. We're talking about people with advanced degrees, doing complex, high-value work, but earning maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Compare that to what an American worker with similar qualifications would expect, maybe double or even triple that amount, and you start to see why corporations push so hard for these visa programs. It's not charity, it's cost savings. And that has real consequences. Young Americans graduating with degrees in engineering, computer science, technical fields, they're entering a job market where they're competing not just with each other, but with a wave of foreign workers willing to accept lower wages. It's not that these foreign workers are doing anything wrong. They're just trying to build a better life, same as anyone. But the effect is that wages get driven down, opportunities shrink, and a generation of American workers ends up underemployed or unemployed. Right now, youth unemployment is hovering near 10%, one of the highest it's been in years. That's not a coincidence. So you've got this tension. On one hand, the administration is saying, we need these workers temporarily to rebuild industries we lost. On the other hand, a lot of people are saying, wait, we were promised those jobs. We were told this was about making America great again, about putting Americans first. And now it feels like we're being told we're not good enough, that we need to be taught by people from other countries before we're ready. That doesn't sit well. It feels like broken faith. But this isn't just about economics, it's about identity and loyalty. Let's go back a bit. During his first campaign, Trump actually signaled that he wanted to scale back or even end the H-1B program. He called it a way for companies to undercut American workers, and his base loved that message. It was bold, it was clear, it was America first, in its purest form. But then something happened. The billionaire donor class, the corporate wing of the Republican Party, they pushed back. Hard. Now, I made one of those public statements as well, don't get me wrong. The overall debate over H-1B was heating up, and that moment was really the first big crack in the MAGA coalition. You had the populist wing, the people who wanted closed borders and protected wages, squaring off against the corporate wing, the people who wanted global talent and cheap labor. Trump, caught in the middle, ended up siding with the donors. He reversed course, kept the H-1B program in place, even quietly expanded it, and ever since, there's been this simmering resentment, a sense that maybe the movement got hijacked somewhere along the way. And now, that internal clash has gone public. You've got talk radio hosts, independent commentators, grassroots activists all raising alarms. They're saying this isn't what we signed up for. We didn't vote to hand over the best jobs in the new economy to workers from halfway around the world. We voted to rebuild this country with our own hands, our own people. And they're not being unreasonable. This is a legitimate question of priorities. Do you prioritize speed and efficiency, even if it means sidelining American workers in the short term? Or do you prioritize loyalty to the people who put you in office, even if it means things take a little longer? There's no easy answer, and these are really hard questions to ask. But the frustration is real, and it's loud. You've got young people, especially, feeling like they're being shut out of the future they were promised. They went to school, they got degrees, they did everything right, and now they're watching jobs go to people on temporary visas who might not even stay in the country long term. It stings. And it's creating a rift that Trump is going to have to address if he wants to keep his coalition intact heading into the midterms. Because here's the thing, this isn't just a policy debate. It's a test of trust. Trump built his brand on being the guy who fights for the forgotten American, the factory worker, the small-town kid who didn't go to an Ivy League school but still deserves a shot. If that brand starts to feel hollow, if people start to think he's just another politician cutting deals that benefit the rich and powerful, that's a problem. Not just for him, but for the entire movement he represents. And while that storm raged, Washington suddenly got hit with another one, an entirely different kind of controversy. Just as the H-1B debate was reaching a fever pitch, Democrats in Congress decided it was time to play a different card. It was the first official day back in session after the government shutdown, and instead of focusing on policy or negotiations, they leaked a new batch of documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein. You remember Epstein, the financier, the convicted criminal, the guy whose web of connections touched some of the most powerful people in the world before his death in a federal jail cell? The timing wasn't subtle. Democrats had just spent over a month in a brutal shutdown standoff, one that made them look obstructionist and out of touch with everyday Americans. Polls were turning against them. Approval was sinking. They needed a reset, a way to shift the narrative. And what better way than to dredge up a scandal involving Trump? So they released emails, messages, call logs, documents that had been sitting in storage for years, just waiting for the right political moment. The media, predictably, jumped on it. Headlines screamed that Trump's name had appeared in newly released Epstein files. Cable news spent hours speculating. Social media lit up. It was designed to create maximum damage, to plant doubt, to make people wonder. And for a few hours, it worked. But then something interesting happened. People actually started reading the emails. And when they did, the story didn't quite go the way Democrats expected. Out of the hundreds of thousands of pages released, Trump's name showed up in 3 emails. Just 3. And the content? It wasn't incriminating, it was almost the opposite. One email, written between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime associate, mentioned that a victim had spent time at Trump's property but had never implicated him in anything. The phrase they used was striking, "The dog that hasn't barked is Trump." In other words, despite all the opportunities they had to accuse him, nobody did. He was around, sure, but he never took the bait. Another email mentioned something about Mar-a-Lago, Trump's private club. It said Trump had asked someone to stop bringing certain people around, that he'd noticed inappropriate behavior and wanted it to end. The email actually said Trump had asked Ghislaine Maxwell herself to stop whatever was going on multiple times. And eventually, according to reports that came out years ago, Trump banned Epstein from the property altogether. That's not the behavior of someone involved in wrongdoing. That's the behavior of someone who saw something wrong and shut it down. The third email was even more interesting. It was strategic, almost calculating. Someone was advising Epstein on how to handle Trump politically. The message suggested letting Trump hang himself if he denied being on Epstein's plane or at his properties, because then they could use that denial as leverage. But, and here's the kicker, if it looked like Trump might actually win the presidency, maybe they should save him instead, create a debt, something they could cash in later. It was textbook blackmail thinking, the kind of leverage game powerful people play behind closed doors. But here's what it actually revealed, they never had anything real on Trump. If they did, they wouldn't have been scheming about how to manufacture leverage. They'd have just used it. So the emails that were supposed to destroy Trump ended up doing the opposite. They showed he kept his distance. They showed he spoke up when he saw something wrong. They showed that even the people trying to trap him couldn't find anything solid to work with. It was almost comical. Democrats released this expecting a scandal, and instead they handed Trump's defenders a pile of exculpatory evidence. 3 of Epstein's own lawyers, after reviewing everything during the original case, publicly stated they never found Trump's name connected to any misconduct. Not once. If there had been something, anything, it would have surfaced years ago when the political incentive to use it was just as strong. So why release them now? That's the question worth asking. If you've got nothing, why make noise? The answer is pretty straightforward, distraction. Democrats needed to change the subject. The shutdown had been a disaster for them. They held the government hostage for over a month. Military families went without paychecks. Food assistance programs were frozen. And all of it to protect health care provisions and spending programs that most Americans didn't even understand. The optics were terrible. Polls showed voters blamed them, not Trump. They were bleeding support, especially among moderates and independents. So they reached for the oldest play in the book, manufacture a scandal. Get people talking about something, anything, other than your own failures. It's classic political misdirection. You can't defend your record, attack your opponent's character. You can't win on policy, make it about personality. And when that doesn't work, when the facts don't cooperate, you just keep the story alive anyway. Plant doubt. Let the media run with it. Hope that enough people hear the accusation and never bother to read the actual details. Trump saw through it immediately. He went on Truth Social and called it exactly what it was, a hoax meant to deflect from Democrat failure. He pointed out that if there was anything real, it would have come out during the first campaign, or the first term, or any of the dozens of investigations and inquiries that have been thrown at him over the years. But it didn't, because it doesn't exist. And now, here we are in late 2025, and they're still trying to make something stick. It's desperate, it's transparent, and honestly, it's getting old. But the conversation these leaks reignited goes much deeper than headlines. Because even though the emails don't implicate Trump, they do remind us of something bigger, something that never really went away. The Epstein case isn't just about one man. It's about a system, a network of power, influence, and secrecy that touched people at the highest levels of government, business, media, even academia. And the fact that we're still getting redacted documents, still seeing selective leaks, still waiting for full transparency, that tells you something. It tells you there are people out there who don't want the whole story to come out. Think about it. Epstein died in a federal jail cell under circumstances that have never been fully explained. Cameras malfunctioned, guards fell asleep. It was ruled a suicide. But even people who don't usually buy into conspiracy theories found that hard to swallow. Then his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted and sentenced to prison. But the list of her clients, the people who actually participated in the crimes, that list has never been fully released. We get bits and pieces, names here and there, but never the whole picture. Why? Because exposure means accountability, and accountability means powerful people losing their power. So instead, we get this slow drip of information, just enough to keep people talking, but never enough to actually do anything about it. It's frustrating. It's maddening, really. Every few months, another batch of documents gets unsealed. Another round of speculation begins. The media picks it apart, people take sides, and then it fades away again, unresolved. It's like watching a story that never ends, because no one in charge actually wants it to end. And that erodes trust. When ordinary people see that the rules don't seem to apply equally, that justice depends on who you know or how much money you have, they stop believing in the system. They stop thinking their vote matters, or that speaking up will change anything. That's dangerous, not just politically, but for the fabric of society. Because once people lose faith in institutions, the courts, the media, the government, it's really hard to get it back.